Hi guys, well this is the first episode of Cooking with Grandad Bob. As you can see before you, there's a big pile of stuff and you're each going to get one of these in a bag. And what I'm going to do now is show you what to do with it. So the first thing is I need to get me Christmas apron on so I don't get messed up. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to chop up all the vegetables first, and there's a reason for that. The reason I want to chop the vegetables and get it all chopped up first is so that I can have a drink. Because when I'm cooking, it'd be nice to have a glass of wine or a glass of beer. But I don't want to be doing that, chopping up vegetables if I'm having a drink. So we'll get the chopping up done and then I can have a drink. So start off with the onion. First thing I want to do is chop up an onion. Special way of doing this, or the way I do it, you take a big sharp knife and you cut off the pointy bit first. And then you cut off the hairy bit at the end, but as close to the edge as you can. So when you do that, you're literally just cutting the hairy bits off like that. And then use a small knife to start where you started on the first bit, and then just peel off all the brown bits. There's a reason to do it like this. There's lots of different ways you can cut an onion. But always do it like this, because when you want it chopped finely, it's a great way of doing it so you don't cut yourself. So we peel off all the brown bits. Da 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 da. Da 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 da. Sorry about the singing. Da 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 da. Da 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 da. Right, I'm only going to film doing the onion, and then I'm going to chop everything else up because rushing everything else would be boring. I just want to show you how to chop an onion. I might show you how I do my garlic as well. Right. So once you've done that, you then take it at the pointy end and cut it in half, and then following the lines of the onion, you cut into the middle like that, all the way around. So you're like following the lines that are all the way around the onion themselves. You're not making new ones, and you're not cutting yourself. Being careful. Da da da. All the way around, following all the lines. Slices about, I don't know, just under 1/4 of an inch, I suppose. And then when you've got it all done like that, then all you've got to do to get nicely chopped onions is just slice along. And because it's still stuck together at the end there, it means you can cut all the way to the end without having to hold all the bits together, because they hold together. You pick it up, put it back down. So all those bits that you'd normally be trying to hang on to if you're chopping it, it's dead easy. Same again with the other one. And you can do this if you're slicing it as well, but you just don't put those first vertical slices in. Da -da -da, da -da -da, da -da -da. So you've got a nice chopped onion. How about that? And then quickly we'll do the garlic as well while I'm at it, because I do exactly the same thing with the garlic, to be fair. So you should have 2 or 3 bits of garlic in the pile. So again, do exactly the same really. So first thing I do is get rid of the red bit on the outside, the crispy bit. So do that to all 3, or all 2, depending on how many you got, because I think some have got 2 big ones and some have got 3 little ones. I'm actually doing this real time, so if you wanted to, you could do it exactly the same time to the video. That's cool. And don't forget, if I go too fast, you can always pause and then come back in a minute. So once you've done that, then the next bit I do, next bit I do,
It's squeaky.
Alright, next bit I do is squash it, and then you see one end's pointy and the other end's rough. So you go to the bit that's cut towards the pointy end, and then do the same thing as we did with the onion. So it gives a really nice squished chopped onion. Just throw the end away. Same again, it's been squashed. So cut towards the pointy end, and then chop along where you cut. Nice squished, chopped, tiny bits of onion. Oh, look at that! And it all holds together to the end again because you've kept that little endy bit on. That's one. It's a bit wasty throwing away the endy bit, but who cares? Right, so when you've done that, you've got your garlic ready and your onion ready. So the next bit is get a frying pan. You'll need 2 pans. You'll need the biggest not sticky pan you've got, and that will be for cooking the main ingredients. But you need a frying pan for your sausages. Now what I like to do is I like to get the sausages cooked first. Not because they take a long time to cook, but because I want to cook them slowly, because I want them nice and brown all over. Not burnt, but just nice and brown all over, so they taste really, really nice when you chop them up for the risotto. So a little bit of olive oil.
Can you put the lights on the cooker, please?
About a tablespoonful. Of course I can.
Thank you.
So a little bit of light in there. So we've got a bit of olive oil, and then a little bit of butter. About that. See that? It's about the size of the end of my nose. So a little bit of butter and a little bit of olive oil. And then let that start going. And then what I recommend is that you have 2 sausages, maybe 1 or 2 sausages per person. So because it's me and Kath, we're probably going to have 4 sausages. But I think for each family, if you had 6 or 8 sausages, that'd be great. And then just cook them really slowly. So they'll be cooking away while I'm doing everything else. So I'll turn it down a bit, because I want them to cook really nice and slowly so they're brown all over, and I'll be turning them over as I go along. And just to make sure I don't get told off by Nana Kath, I'm also going to put a lid on the top so there's batter everywhere. There we go. And I need one for that in a bit as well. Right, you don't need a pan this big, but I like to use a pan that big because I'm a very, very, very messy cook. So to save being very, very, very messy everywhere, if you use a nice big pan like that, you can stir things, and it doesn't matter if anything flips up in the air, because it's not going to fall out of that, is it? So then what we want, same again, is a little tiny bit of oil. Little tiny bit of olive oil. Again, about a tablespoonful. And then what you need to do is a tablespoonful of oil, and then another bit of butter about the same size as the first bit. Might need a bit more than that actually. Just going to get some more butter. Because I know you don't need that much butter to fry the onions, but it's doing a little bit more than that. I'll explain as we go along. So maybe have a little bit more of that. And then that, what you do next, once you've got your butter in there and your oil in there and they're getting nice and hot, then what I do is I throw in my chopped onion. It's just the onion at this stage. So what you want to do is when you put the onion in, while that's cooking, on a kind of medium heat, first I'm just going to move them all around so they all get a little bit covered in butter and oil, and so the whole pan's nicely cooking, not just one little lump in the middle. And then I'll leave that going, just turn it down a little bit. I'll leave that going for a minute, because now the next thing I'm going to do is my leek. So the way I always do a leek is a little bit like the way I do an onion. I always cut the rough bit off the end first, because sometimes when you cook it, those bits are a bit dry, so you don't really want that in your dinner. And then what I do is I slice it, not quite to the end, but nearly to the end, and I slice it all the way along like that. Now the reason I do that is when you open a leek, when it grows up, can you see a little bit of dirt in there? So they quite often have a little bit of dirt in the inside. So what I do next is, and it's all held together, it's not going to fall apart. So what I do now is I rinse it off and wash all away those bits of dirt while it's all staying together. Because you don't really want to eat any dirt, do you? Because we're not worms, are we?
It's good for you.
It's good for worms. I don't know if it's good for me. So wash all the dirt out. It also means you don't get those, you don't want a crunchy gritty bit in your mouthful, do you? So when you've done that, you've got the leeks all clean and it's all ready to go, and the onion's already started. So what I do, which is a little bit cheaty, is now that's all going, the onion has started to go soft. You want this onion to go soft and clear. And what I do, this is a bit cheaty, but it does work. Well, it would work if I had the scissors. Let's find the scissors. There they are. So what you do next, it's a bit cheaty, but I like doing it like this, is while I'm watching my onions, I just chop the leeks in. And because they've already been cut a little bit, it's quite an easy job. Just keep going down. You can chop it up on the chopping board if you prefer, but I like doing it like this so you get lots of different random shapes. And they just cook along with the onions. So you want them cooking with the onions until the onions are nice and clear, and they don't quite start, but they just start to go a little bit yellow, a little bit brown, which means they're cooked. You can hear my sausages buzzing. Might want to turn them off, turn them over a little bit, turn it down a little bit, and then every so often just go and turn them over. See, that's got a lovely brown on one side. I'm going to keep doing that so they go brown all the way around. And say, good idea, put a lid on the pan so you don't get fat all over the kitchen, because I can be a very, very, very messy cook. So carry on cutting up the leeks, random shapes. I kind of go like that, actually. It's quite a nice way of doing it. Doing little V's like that, so you're getting lots of little random bits of leek. And do the same to the other one. Get rid of that leek, it's in the way. Do the same to the other one.
This is always assuming you've got a decent pair of scissors.
If you haven't got a decent pair of scissors, you can do exactly the same thing and chop it up on the chopping board. The reason I like to do it like this in the pan is because I can watch my onions at the same time, because sometimes when you're doing loads and loads of cooking, you can be over there chopping your leeks, and then you come back, and by the time you come back, your onions are burnt. So it's a nice way of keeping an eye on it, so everything's being cooked together. Hope you're enjoying the singing.
Is there a Christmas tune at all?
Could be. The weather outside is frightful, but the fire is so delightful. When you got no place to go, let it snow, let it snow, let it snow. There you go.
Very nice.
Thank you very much. So nearly there with the leeks. And then once these are at the same stage as the onions were, then we're going to add the garlic. And then comes the exciting bit. Well, it's all exciting, obviously.
What's the exciting bit, Grandad?
Well, wait and see. I don't want to spoil the surprise. There's a really exciting bit. So, and it works a treat. So what you'll have to do is, when we come to measure the rice, now, Nana Catherine and Grandad Bob have 60 grams each, but I don't know how much you would like, but I reckon if you go for 60 grams each, there might be a bit left over which you can have for lunch tomorrow. So maybe 50, 60 grams each, and it's probably worth weighing. So if you can see in the pan, can you see in the pan, Nana Kath?
Yes,
so,
I see in the pan. Thank you.
Lovely. So that all gets stirred around, and then all that's cooking along nicely. And let's go back to have a look at the sausages. I might, a little trick here. So what I sometimes do is, I've got my spatula. What I'll do is I'll lean the sausages on its edge and then hold it in place with the spatula, because they want to fall down. See the way they want to naturally fall down because they're not quite round. So what I'll do is I'll use the spatula and a fork to put them up the right side, and we'll leave them to do that side for 5 minutes, and then we'll come back to another side. Just keep an eye on them so they don't burn. So we give that a stir. That's coming along nicely. Turn it up just a little bit. So then the next bit, you remember we chopped the garlic? We come back over here for the garlic, and that goes in too. So we're now garlic, leek and onions all nicely, they call it softening. So they're trying to get, you see the way the onion's gone kind of clear, I don't know if you can make that out. But the onion sort of goes clear and the leek gets nice and soft. And that just means you don't get any crunchy bits in it when it's all cooked. So just keep it going like that for a minute or two. I'm just going to turn it down a little bit so it's on a nice low heat. And then I'm going to come over here and do the next thing. So the next one is the pepper.
I'm on the wrong side.
So the way I like to do the pepper is, again, it's just the way I like to do it, is I push the middle in like that and then slice it down the side. And what that's done is, it should, he says, hopefully, have pushed out all the pips and stuff. There's always going to be a few pips left, and I like to tear off the bits on the inside. Look at that, all nice and clean, no pips anywhere. How easy was that? And then probably, I think I'm probably going to be doing again like I do with the onion, probably slicing it, say, about 1/2 inch, something like that. So slice it all along, 1/2 inch, but not to the end, so it all holds together. Same again. Right, 1/2 inch, right to the end, and don't let go. And then the same again as before, turn it into nice little bits. Look at that, how easy is that? And it all holds together because you did that first bit. Same again. And then they'll go in a minute with the mushroom. Actually no, not with the mushroom, telling fibs. They stay where they are. The reason they're not going in with the mushrooms is because I learned a new trick last week. So normally I put the mushrooms in, but last week I was cooking with Auntie Helen, and Auntie Helen said she always cooks the mushrooms separately because she thinks they come out nicer. And when I made the risotto last week with mushrooms in it, I think it's right, so I learnt a new trick. So we won't put the mushrooms in yet. But we will add the peppers, because I want them again, I want them to soften a little bit, so that again you don't get them crunchy. I know in a stir fry, pepper's really, really nice when it's crunchy, but we're making risotto, and risotto, you want it to be all nice and creamy, so you don't want your peppers to be too crunchy. Right, let's have another go at our sausages. Where's my fork? So again, you can see the top side is not done, but the bottom's all brown and crispy now. Look at that! Oh, that looks amazing. So now all I'm going to do is put the last side down, the one bit that hasn't been done, and then using your fork and your spatula, so you can see the side that's not been done. I'm going to flip it over and then flip it over again, because that's the last bit to be done. And the rest of it's all gone nice and brown. And then after that, there's just one more trick I like to do, which I'll show you in a minute. So the sausages look like they're nearly there, so give that another 5 minutes at the bottom end and they'll be beautiful. Right, so now the next trick, I'm just going to have a quick look in here. Now you can, if you look in the pan, you see there's a little bit of oil left and a little bit of butter left, but you need a little bit more, because the next bit, what we've got to do is we've got to coat all of the grains of rice in a little bit of oil and a little bit of butter before they cook. So I'm going to put another little bit of butter in, just a little slice. And then I'm probably going to put another little bit of olive oil in there as well. Some bits of the olive oil. Another cap. So a little bit of olive oil, just a little globe. And now you can see there's a little bit more oil in there, because that's got a very important job. It's got to coat the rice. I'll show you that in a minute. Ta-da! Right, that was an interesting addition. Do you think we should just sweep that up? Go on pause for a second now, okay? So now, the next bit is sorting out the rice. Now you might have your own way of doing this. Some people have a cup, and they use a cup to measure the amount. But I like, Nana Cat will tell you, I like to weigh everything. I like to weigh everything and measure everything when I'm cooking. Don't know why, I'm just a bit weird like that. So,
is that the only thing that you're weird?
Well, there may be other things, but it's just, I see, I know you've got it right. If I do 60 grams or 50 grams a piece, I know I'm going to be spot on. So today I'm going to do 60, because I'm starving. So you see that's 40, 60, there you go. So 3 breakfast spoons works out to about 60, I think. Look at that. 120. Well, we'll give it an extra 2. There you go, 120 grains of rice. 120 grains of rice. 120 grams of, and it's special rice. It's risotto rice. So now, the next bit, and we put that out of the way, is in goes the rice with all of that lovely green mixture. And now what we're going to do is we're going to stir the rice into everything. Can you see all the rice grains are going white from kind of white to a kind of, I don't know, buttery. And then what you do is you just fry them around like that for about a minute or 2, and they start to go clear. The colour changes from that bright white before you started they start to get a little bit translucent, which means they're ready. So while that's just doing its thing, let's go back to the sausages. And again, using the same trick as I did before, scissors, fork, that's how I do it, just lazy. It's easier than using a knife, so I just chop them up into nice bite-sized chunks in the pan, so they're all ready to go in the risotto when I'm ready. Nana Kath and Grandad Bob are having vegetarian sausages that are kind of made out of mushrooms mostly, but your sausages are proper ones. And I see all the sausages all nicely chopped up. Oh, look at that, beautiful. So they'll be ready to go in this eventually. They go in right at the end. So the rice is starting to colour up a little bit. So while that's going, I'm going to take those sausages, in fact I might use the bowl I've just used for the rice, why wouldn't you? So I'm going to take those sausages and I'm now going to put them in a bowl so they're ready to go back in when I'm ready. And then using that same pan, so that pan's all going to smell and taste a little bit like nice sausage, which is lovely. So I'm going to use that pan to cook the mushrooms because they're going to taste extra nice. Now this is just me being fussy. But what I like to do with the mushrooms is I just like to cut the end off, because again that end there can be a little bit, because it's been exposed to the elements, it can be a little bit tough. It's just me being a bit fussy, but I think it makes them taste extra nice if you just cut that end off. And if I was using great big mushrooms, I might cut the mushrooms up into chunks, but because these are quite small ones, I think they'll be nice as they are. So now what I'm going to do is throw them into the same pan I've had the sausages in and just start them cooking slowly in there. Just whittle them around a little bit so they get a bit covered in the butter and oil. I'll just leave them for a few minutes and we'll come back to them in a bit. So you can see the rice is now all beautifully coated and it's starting to go a little bit translucent, a little bit. So now is the exciting bit. So now we've got the wine. So it's a nice little bottle of wine and all that goes in. Watch what happens when we pop it in there. And it all bubbles up all around the rice, and then the rice starts to absorb it. It starts to, all that wine disappears. It all gets soaked up by all that rice. So while that's doing its soaking up, I've now got to prepare some stock. So what I do, we'll stick the kettle on. Stick the kettle on and get a little jug. Not a big jug if you haven't got a little jug. And then on your pack, on your pile, there's a little tiny stock cube. So what I do is get the stock cube and break it up into the pan so it's all nice and... You can put it in whole, but I think if you squidge it up, then it all dissolves a lot better. So leave that for a minute while the kettle boils. Check my rice, and now I'm going to start preparing the rest of the veg. So first off, we've got green beans. So the green beans will probably go in first. And for them, what I do, just for easy cooking, so I'll push them all with a knife so they're all in the same place, and then chop all those little endy pointy bits off, and then do the same the other end. Push them all up to the knife so they're all in the same place, and then chop all the pointy endy bits off, and then same for the next bit. Da-da-da. And all the endy bits can go in the compost heap if you've got one, or in the bin if you don't. But you should have one. The compost heaps are really, really good. All the bits, off they go. All the endy bits, off they go. And then when you've got all the bits cut and ready to go, what I like to do, get them all kind of lined up the same, and then cut them down the middle, and then do it again. So you've got 4 bits, roughly about the same size. And they'll be going into the risotto next. Have we got time? Just check our mushrooms. Oh, they look beautiful. And the rice is coming along nicely. Smells amazing. It's a shame it's television, not smelly vision. You could get a smell of that. So we're now going to add, kettle's boiled, and we're going to add 500 mils of water, roughly, into that stock. And then give it a stir to make sure all that lovely stock cubes disappeared. And then I just have that over here ready, so that as the rice absorbs all that wine that went in, and it needs a bit more liquid, then we just add a bit of this stock. Right, so next off, let's put the beans in. So we're going to pop those beans into the mix with everything else. And then the next bit I'm going to do is the stick of celery. Now again, Nana Kath thinks this is a waste of time, but what I like to do, I don't like stringy bits. So what I do is with the celery, I pull off all, make a little cut and pull off all the stringy bits, because I think celery tastes amazing, but I can't stand getting a stringy bit in my teeth. So I always pull off all the stringy bits before I start cooking it. And all you got to do is make a little cut at the end, and it all comes off beautifully. Look at that. Look at that. And then you end up with really, really nice tasty celery without any minging bits getting in your teeth. I usually do both ends, because sometimes you get a different bit from the other end that you miss from the first end. Look at that, beautiful. So then, once you've done that, just chop it all up into nice little bits, and they're going to go in for the risotto the same as everything else. Go slowly so you don't cut yourself. Right. I think I missed a bit. There we go. Right, so let's give that a stir. So now I've got the celery, the peppers, the leeks, the onions, the rice, all bubbling away nicely together. So now we're going to add in a little bit of that stock. Because what you really want, what you really want, is a zig a zag. What you really want is you want it all to be just slightly underwater. So it's all absorbing all of that lovely wine and stock. It tastes amazing. Right, the mushrooms are ready. So I'm going to switch them off. And now just to keep everything warm, I'm going to put the sausages in with the mushrooms. And they're all switched off. And they're ready to go in when I'm ready for them. So now we've got a few more bits to do. We've got the broccoli, the courgette, and then we've got two different types of beans, peas. There's some mange tout and sugar snap peas. So let's see what we do with those. You have to follow me over here, Annika. We're going that way this time. Very interesting. So now what I do with the broccoli, I'm just going to keep that probably in bits like that, and then leave those two bits in the end because we've each got a broccoli bit. And then with the peas, mange tout, again you sometimes get a stringy bit at the end, so I'll just grab the pointy bit and just pull it towards the other end. See that? And again, it's just me being fussy, but it does make a difference. Just get that little bit of stringy bit off the end. Look at that. See that? You wouldn't want to eat that, would you? I mean, it might be good for you. So I'll pull that off all the mange tout, and then got one. And then same again as everything else, just chop them up into bits. And that means every taste you get, they don't need to do it with the sugar snap peas. You can do, but I don't think it's such a thing with sugar snaps because they just break off anyway. If they break off anyway, that means that it's not really stringy. Yeah, look, there's nothing in that, so I'll just leave it as it is. So we've done the mange tout, now we'll do the sugar snap peas. Nice little bits. And that lot can all go in. Now the last bit, courgette. Again, just a quick way of doing it. I just tend to slice it into 4, cut the end off, and then just so you've got little quarters, and then just chop those quarters into nice little bits as you go along. Look at that. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. And this is a really good way to try new vegetables that you might not know or that you might not like. Because the nice thing about a risotto is they're all going to taste exactly the same. They're all going to taste amazing of all that lovely stock that's gone in. So they're all going to taste like gravy and like the wine that went in. And they'll be absolutely beautiful. Now 2 little bits of broccoli. So now, I think... Oh, just got to add the peas. So can you see the way all those colours are all mixing in, all those beautiful greens, and oh, look at that, looks amazing, guys. So just let that bubble away and absorb all that lovely liquid. And now all we're doing really is we're waiting for our courgettes and our broccoli to cook, because when they're cooked, by then the rice will all be done. Let's just grab some peas. Peas in there as well. Look at that. Oh, can't wait. So then you just want to simmer that, and if it needs a little bit more liquid, just add a bit more in, and then just keep that simmering away until. And what I do to test it, get a little spoon. It's nowhere near ready yet, but what I do to test it, get a little teaspoon and just grab a couple of bits of rice. And taste it. That's really crunchy. Nowhere near ready yet.
How do you know if it needs a little bit more liquid?
So what you're doing, you're watching it. That's a really good question, Annika. How do you know when you need liquid? So if you look at that, can you see these little puddles on the top? There's little puddles. If you press it in, you can see those little puddles of water. When there's none of them, and you can't see any little puddles of water when you press on it, that means that the liquid has all been soaked up. And if it all gets soaked up, then it's going to be dry. It's going to be almost like frying. So what you do is you keep it as it is until it gets dry. And if you can't see those little puddles anymore, then you need some more liquid. That's how I check it. Right, so we'll come back in about 10 minutes. We're going to leave that to simmer for about 10 minutes, and then we'll come back in about 10 minutes and catch up. Yeah, welcome back. The rice, if you want to come and have a look, the rice has started to go a little bit clear. I don't know if you can see that. You see those colours? They're not like white and they're a bit more fluffy. It's nearly done. So now what I do is you want to add a bit of basil. Don't want to put it in too early because it'll kind of disappear. Maybe a little bit more. Maybe a big fat heaped teaspoon. And then the same again. A little bit of parsley. And you've got a little bit of parsley and a little bit of basil in your pack. And I'm just going to put another spoonful of this in. If I can open it. There you go. And again, probably about a good fat teaspoonful. It's got a bit of parsley and a bit of basil. And then the only other thing I add to it is a bit of pepper. Nana, Catherine and Grandad Bob like pepper, so we have quite a lot. Most people don't have nearly as much as us, probably about half of that. And then, because Nana Cath like to be healthy, we only have a tiny bit of salt, but you need a little bit, just to give it that extra bit of taste. And we'll give it another stir. You can see most of that liquid's gone. I might put a little bit more in, and that's cooking along beautifully. And again, just to see, so the things that take the longest are probably the beans and the courgettes. So I'm going to try a courgette, see if it's done. Not that one. Nearly done. It's a little bit, they call it al dente, means a little bit crispy. So it's cooked, but it's not mushy cooked. It's cooked in a nice way, so, and you can see that, you see I couldn't make puddles anymore, but that's because it's nearly done, to be fair. In fact, I think that is done probably. We'll just give it one more go. A little bit more stock. No, just leave it for another minute or two. I've got one more job to do while that's doing its thing. So I always like to flatten it off. The reason for that is because obviously the water is going to level off. So you want to make sure it's all just about covered. There you go. If there's anything sticking up, poke it down. Right, we'll leave that for a minute. And the sausages and the mushrooms are ready to go in. So there's only one more thing to do. The next bit is, there's two different types of cheese in your pack. The first type is Parmesan, Parmigiano Reggiano. And there'll be a little bit in your pack, won't be a big bit like that, but there'll be a bit like that. And what I like to do, again it's just me being fussy, you could just use a normal grater, but I like to use, you know when you get your big grater, you know there's a little side on it. I always like to do the little side, because I think the smaller the bits of Parmesan, the nicer they go into the sauce. And you can use other cheeses. Some people use cheddar, and I've used red Leicester before, that's nice. But the best ones are Parmesan and mascarpone. So just grate that up nice and fine. And this is the last thing to go in, just before you dish up. All nice and done. And if there's any lumps, just eat them. And again, it doesn't matter if you don't like Parmesan cheese, because it's not everybody's taste. I like it, but if you don't like Parmesan cheese, put it in anyway, because it doesn't taste like Parmesan cheese. Remember what I said earlier? Because of all that lovely stock and all those lovely flavours, it just tastes like a fabulous cheesiness. And there's a bit of mascarpone. You probably need about half of a pot or a third of a pot. We'll see what it looks like when it's done. Right, Nonna Kath, can we get back to the pot? So you can see that pot. I'll do a little trick now. So you can see it's soaked up most of that liquid. I'm now going to turn it up a bit, so it's on a high heat, just to use that last of that liquid up. But now, because it's on a high heat, you've got to make sure it doesn't stick. So I'm going to keep stirring it, and then I'm going to add in all, remember we did all those lovely mushrooms and sausages? So they can all go in now. Look at that, oh man. And because it's up a heat, it's getting rid of the liquid, and it's heating up those sausages and mushrooms that we cooked earlier. And following Auntie Helen's trick, all the mushrooms have been cooked separately, so they haven't just disappeared into the risotto, they all stick out nice and firm and solid. Look at that, oh, man. So two more tricks. What I like to do is put the plates into the microwave to heat them up. So we pop the plates into the microwave for a minute. 1 minute usually does it, maybe a minute and a bit. Keep stirring this, because it's all, look at that, beautiful. And then while the plates are doing, I'm going to get the Parmesan that I've grated and the mascarpone. So we put the Parmesan in first, and then the mascarpone. The mascarpone is almost like yogurt. It's really, really, really like soft and squidgy. It doesn't look like normal cheese, and it's almost like cream. It's beautiful in a risotto. And then what you've got to do is stir everything round, all that cheese and all that mascarpone, and stir it and stir it and stir it and mix it in, so every grain of rice And every vegetable is all getting a little bit of that lovely cheesy sauce. Look at that. Oh man, this is going to taste amazing. So yeah, all done. Now you can see the whole thing's taken on that lovely sticky cheesiness. It's like the top of a pizza. Or cheese on toast. And it's all mixed in and beautiful. And now I'm starving, I can't wait to get stuck in. Look at that. Oh man. So now switch the gas off, and then all we've got to do is dish up. Grab a plate. Shall we be posh? Do you want to be posh, Nanika?
I don't know. Why? What do you mean?
Bit of MasterChef. Get a bit of MasterChef. So what they do on MasterChef.
I just want you to feed me.
I just want me to feed you. So what they do on MasterChef is they dish it all up like this, and they put it all in a ring. But I missed. See, I missed there. And pile it all up. And pile it all up. Pile it all up. And take that away. Look at that. Nana calf.
Thank you.
Enjoy your dinner.
Thank you, Bob.
Thanks, guys. I'll see you again for pudding in about an hour.